Do you believe that a dream can save your life? What if, while you were sleeping, an angel appeared before you, not to protect you, but to ask for your forgiveness? It may seem impossible, strange, perhaps even delusional, but what if I told you that this dream carried a truth hidden for decades, that behind this heavenly visit, there was a family secret so deep that it would change everything you thought you knew about your origins? If you've ever had a dream so vivid that you woke up with your heart racing or felt a gentle presence at your side for no apparent reason, then this video is for you. The story you're about to hear is not only moving, it's a wake-up call, a divine sign that you may have already received and ignored. Dreams that seem more intense than normal, presences that can't be explained by logic, intuitions that come out of nowhere. Could all of this really be a coincidence? Today, we're going to delve into a real documented spiritual experience where a simple dream about an angel was the starting point for a life-changing revelation. An ordinary woman like you or me began to dream repeatedly about an angel with a familiar face. But there was something strange about this being of light. He didn't say words of comfort, he asked for forgiveness. He insisted, with eyes full of pain. Forgive me, I failed you. Have you ever experienced this? A dream so vivid that it seemed more like a memory than a creation of your mind? Well, in this case, what seemed like a spiritual message turned out to be the discovery of a family secret buried for years. A secret that involved sacrifice, love, guilt, and protection beyond death. Many people believe that angels are messengers from God, sent to save us from danger, to comfort us in difficult times, or even to silently guide us along paths we cannot see. But what few realize is that these interventions are not always obvious. Sometimes angels act silently, disguised as coincidences, premonitions, or dreams. And that is why you need to stay with me until the end, because what you are about to discover now may surprise you, and perhaps even help you understand something that is happening to you right now. The story you are about to hear is true, and throughout it, we will talk about spirituality in depth but in clear language, without difficult mysteries. We will reflect on how divine signs manifest themselves, and mainly, how angels can intervene in our lives without us realizing it. Yes, there are people who are saved by angels without knowing it, and Anna, our protagonist, is one of them. But the most impressive thing wasn't the dream itself. It was what happened afterwards. A forgotten detail, an object that fell out of nowhere, an old conversation that took on new meaning. Piece by piece, Anna began to put together a puzzle that would change her life forever. And this is where everything starts to reveal itself. Piece by piece, Anna began to put together a puzzle that would change her life forever. It was there, in the silence of the early morning, looking at the ceiling with a restless heart, that she realized. That dream was not just a dream. It was a calling, a spiritual whisper trying to guide her to a long-forgotten truth. Something inside her told her that she needed to keep investigating, that angel did not appear by chance. And that was when she found, among old family papers, a letter yellowed by time, with a signature that made her shiver. At this point, in history, you might be wondering, what if something similar has already happened to me and I didn't even realize it? So if this topic resonates with you, if you have ever felt that someone from above is protecting you or sending you signs in the most difficult moments, leave a comment below with what has touched you the most so far. Share your experience or your opinion, because you may be helping someone else who is going through the same doubts and concerns. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this type of content that touches the soul. When you comment, like, and subscribe, you are saying that this message has value and that it deserves to be spread. And I thank you for that, from the bottom of my heart, because together we are building a space of welcome, spirituality, and discoveries that can change lives. So if this story has awakened something inside you, leave your like right now. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, now is the perfect time. Activate the bell, because what's yet to come will open your mind to things you may never have imagined. And speaking of which, remember the letter Anna found. It was just the beginning of something even bigger. Anna has always been one of those people who keeps her feet on the ground, but with her heart set on high. He had a simple life, a calm routine, divided between work at the school in the small town where he lived and moments of prayer in the evening. Spirituality has always been his silent companion, not the kind that needs to prove anything to anyone, but the living faith that shows itself in a calm gaze, a sweet word, a careful gesture. Still, inside Anna carried doubts that she never had the courage to verbalize. There were questions that were kept under lock and key, discomforts that arose in moments of deep silence, and that she always tried to silence with her daily activities. But something changed when the dreams began. It all began with vague images, a bright field, a serene presence, a distant voice that seemed to call her name. As the days passed, the visions became clearer. It was always the same scene, the same soft light that enveloped everything with a peace that did not fit in this world, and in the center of it all an angel. A being of inexplicable beauty, but with a face strangely familiar, as if she had seen him before. And he always said the same thing: "Forgive me. You need to know the truth." At first, Anna thought it was just a reflection of a tired mind, trying to find solace in comforting dreams, but there was something different about this dream, a deep sense that it was real, that there was a message there, something important. She would wake up with her heart racing and her eyes filled with tears, as if she had actually experienced that encounter. And the angel's insistence on asking for forgiveness began to bother her more than she cared to admit. One night, after yet another of these dreams, she woke up with a phrase echoing in her head: "The past still lives in you." That left her astonished. What did that mean? What past? Whose was that angelic face that was so familiar to her? Why did she feel she needed to know something that had never been told to her? It was then that Anna began to remember fragments of her childhood that had previously seemed irrelevant. Conversations interrupted when she entered the room, glances exchanged between the adults in the family when a name was mentioned. All of this began to make sense in a way that it hadn't before. She realized that perhaps she was living in the reflection of a story that wasn't entirely hers, but that affected her deeply. And that feeling led her to an old wooden box kept in the back of her mother's closet. A box she had never touched, out of respect or perhaps fear of what she might find there. Among old photos and yellowed mementos was a letter, written by a man named Elias. Anna had never heard that name mentioned in her home, but the tone of the letter revealed a deep connection with her mother. And most surprisingly, the handwriting was exactly the same as the one she had seen in the words whispered by the angel in her dream. The letter spoke of regret, of a mistake made long ago, of a request for forgiveness that he never had the courage to make in life. He said that one day maybe Anna would understand everything, and now the pieces were starting to fall into place. The angel was Elijah, and Elijah was his biological father. The revelation fell like a silent bolt of lightning. It was as if his entire identity had been rearranged in seconds. At the same time, it made sense. That feeling that something was missing, that intuition that he could never explain, everything took on a new dimension. Anna cried. She cried not only for the discovery, but for everything that was not said, for all the silences that marked her story without her knowing. But along with the pain came an unexpected feeling: peace. Because deep down she knew Elijah had gotten what he came for. Even from the other side, even without words, he found a way to ask for forgiveness. And Anna, despite the turmoil, was willing to forgive. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because what happened to Anna may seem extraordinary, and it is, but it also reveals something that many of us ignore. Dreams can be channels of real communication, and angels don't always appear with wings or bright lights. Sometimes they manifest themselves through memory, intuition, feelings that arise without explanation. They are messengers of hidden revelations, and they come when the soul is ready to listen. There is a silent impact in all of this, because these spiritual experiences often push us towards an internal transformation that changes the way we see life. They show us that we are being guided, even when everything seems confusing. And what's more, they invite us to face the truth, even when it hurts. This is what Anna experienced, a journey that began with a dream and ended up becoming a reunion. with her origins, her faith, and forgiveness. This story reminds us that there are no coincidences when it comes to spirituality. What seems like just a dream can be the beginning of a profound turning point, and perhaps at this very moment, you too are receiving signs. Maybe something inside you is trying to emerge, showing you a different direction, and most importantly, you are not alone. Comment here, I'm on this journey too. I want to know if this story resonated with something inside you. That night when everything seemed too silent, Anna fell asleep earlier than usual. The weight of her thoughts, the intensity of her memories, and that new feeling, mixed with confusion and tenderness, quickly led her to sleep. But what seemed to be just an attempt to rest the soul a little turned into, once again, a meeting. Only now, the dream had something different. It was as if I had crossed an invisible layer, a border between what is just imagination and what carries the force of something spiritual. She was standing in a wide, open field where light seemed to rise from the earth itself. Everything around was golden, calm, as if time there ran on another frequency. The air was light, and even without any sound around, there was a silent music that touched directly to the heart. And then he appeared, the same angel, tall, serene, but with a look full of emotion. This time Anna could see his features better. It was like looking into the eyes of someone you've loved for a long time. Even though you've never met them, that man's face had slight marks of pain, like someone who had been through many battles, but also a deep peace, like someone who had already understood that the most important thing is not to win, but to heal. He walked slowly towards her, extending his hand as if the gesture was necessary to balance something between them. And then, with a low voice, but with a strength that pierced through any defense, he said, "Forgive me, I should have protected you." Anna couldn't say anything. Only silence answered. But it was a complete silence, as if everything in that moment had found its right place. His words seemed to come from a place beyond the pain. It was a request that carried decades of absence, a guilt transformed into humility. And even though she didn't fully understand why, she knew that that sentence said more than it seemed. It wasn't just about him, nor just about her. It was about something bigger, something that was finally moving. It was at that moment that the image began to fade, as if the light that enveloped everything began to dissolve in the wind. The golden field faded away, and Anna felt the weight of her body slowly returning. She woke up with her heart racing, panting, tears falling before she could even fully open her eyes. She sat on the bed for a few minutes, trying to assimilate what she had just experienced. The feeling was the same as that of someone who had received an urgent message, as if the soul had participated in a secret meeting between worlds. And as much as reason wanted to say that it was just another dream, Anna knew. That was different, she ran her fingers over her face, trying to compose herself, but inside her was a new wound and, at the same time, a new understanding. It was as if something had broken, and in the breaking a hidden truth had finally emerged. The phrase, "I should have protected you," echoed like a key. But protect from what? From who? And why was this only coming to light now? Anna had no idea, but something told him this was just the beginning. She began to write everything down in a notebook, every detail of the dream, every feeling, every word. It was as if she was afraid of forgetting it, as if it had an expiration date, and she needed to keep that moment alive for as long as possible. More than that, she wanted to understand. She needed to understand. There was something there that wasn't just symbolic. The field, the light, the angel's face, the pain in his eyes. Everything seemed loaded with a deep meaning, as if each detail had been carefully placed to convey a revelation that she wasn't yet ready to fully decipher. As the days went by, Anna began to pay more attention to the signs, and she noticed something intriguing. Places that she used to automatically frequent now caused her a certain discomfort. People she had previously spoken to superficially now seemed to carry energies she had never noticed before. It was as if his sensitivity had been adjusted, as if that experience with the angel had reconfigured his emotional field, expanding his perception of everything, and then began a kind of silent journey. Without telling anyone, Anna began to withdraw more into herself. She read ancient texts, sought answers in forgotten books on her mother's bookshelf, and even in biblical writings that had previously seemed too enigmatic to her. Now, those words gained a new light, especially when they spoke of angels taking on human form, of invisible spiritual battles, of missions that go beyond common understanding. But that wasn't all. Hannah also began to have memories she didn't know she had. She could smell things, hear sounds, remember phrases spoken by ancient voices, as if someone was whispering in her ear. They were fragmented memories, like pieces of a puzzle she barely knew existed. And with each new image that emerged, she felt a chill down her spine, not of fear but of anticipation, as if something very important was about to be revealed, and she was being prepared for it. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because what Anna is experiencing is not just a story of forgiveness or reuniting with the past. It is a true portrait of how some people are chosen to see beyond the surface, beyond what is visible to the common eye. When the mind opens to this type of experience, there is no turning back. Transformation is inevitable. No matter how much we try to rationalize, explain, or ignore it, when a spiritual truth touches the soul, it leaves a mark that is impossible to erase. This type of awakening changes the way we deal with the world. It changes our decisions. It even changes our outlook. And the most intense part of all this is that generally these experiences come wrapped in pain, in doubt, in moments of extreme vulnerability. Because it is precisely in this fragile terrain that the light infiltrates. It is there, where all certainties crumble, that the most impactful revelations find space to be born. Anna didn't make a conscious choice. She didn't ask for it. But somehow she was ready. And that's why the dreams came. That's why that familiar figure presented himself as an angel, because some messages can only be received when the heart has been worked by time, by losses, by silent questions that no one has answered. And the most curious thing is that sometimes these dream encounters are the backstage of a bigger story, which is being written while we live the ordinary life of our routine. But it's not ordinary. It never was. Life, when observed carefully, is full of signs, and when you start listening to them for real, everything changes. Connections become deeper. Relationships take on a different meaning. You feel like there's something moving, like an invisible line guiding your steps towards something you might not yet understand. But that needs to happen. It was like that with Anna. It's like that with a lot of people. Maybe it's like that with you too. Write in the comments. That makes sense to me. I want to know if this story resonated with what you've been experiencing too. The morning after the dream, Anna woke up different. She was still herself, but something dormant inside her seemed to have awakened, as if she had crossed an invisible threshold between the ordinary and the inexplicable. The sun came in through the crack in the curtain, but not even the familiar light could dispel what she carried in her chest. There was a weight, and at the same time, a strange lucidity. That phrase, spoken by the angel, echoed in her mind. Like a call, "Forgive me, I should have protected you." It was more than a message. It was a confession, a revelation, a request that came not just from an ethereal being, but from a force that seemed to know every pain she never had the courage to speak out loud. As she ate her breakfast in silence, her eyes fixed on the cup, Anna felt something strange. A slight shiver ran down her spine, the kind that comes not from the cold but from intuition. The sound was subtle, almost imperceptible, but real, atok, as if something had fallen in the next room. Upon checking, he found a small wooden photo frame on the floor. The glass was intact, but the portrait wasn't the same as she remembered. It was an old family photo, the kind that gets forgotten at the back of a closet, but with a detail that previously didn't attract attention, the look on his deceased uncle's face. He seemed to be looking directly at her, not with tenderness but with a strange weight, as if carrying a secret that had not yet been revealed. The feeling of being watched didn't go away. On the contrary, it seemed to increase every day. Little things started happening, a glass slowly sliding across the table without explanation, The TV turns on by itself for a few seconds, always on the same channel, always at a barely audible volume. Low voices, meaningless words rising from the corners of the room when everything was silent. And that presence, invisible, but palpable. As if someone was always one step behind her, watching, waiting. Not with malice, but with a quiet restlessness, an emergency. With each new sign, Anna's mind tried to rationalize. Maybe it was stress, longing for childhood, unresolved grief over the loss of his parents, or even some trick of the imagination. But the heart said something else. He said there was something moving behind visible reality, something that could no longer be ignored. And everything seemed to have started after that dream. Or maybe the dream was just the first crack that opened in a veil that had always been there. The curious thing is that, even with her growing fear, Anna didn't exactly feel terror. She felt a kind of summons, as if she were being led by an invisible thread towards something that needed to be faced. A hidden truth, buried in her own history, perhaps even in her family lineage, because that look in the photo wasn't a look lost in time. It was a trapped look, as if asking to be freed. One of the following nights, while rummaging through the back of the closet looking for a blanket, an envelope fell from the top shelf. It was old, yellowed with time, with no sender. Inside it, a handwritten letter. The handwriting was firm, intense, but charged with emotion. Anna immediately recognized it. It was her mother's handwriting. But the content of the letter was what was most frightening, not for what it said, but for what it insinuated. The letter spoke of things that reason does not understand, of silent pacts made for protection, of forces that surround the bloodline, and of the price some pay to keep others safe. She mentioned a name that Anna had never heard before, but that would become central to everything: Uriel. From that moment on, the idea of being guided took on a new meaning. Maybe it wasn't just an individual experience. Perhaps it was part of an older journey, begun even before his birth. A lineage touched by something that crossed the line between the visible and the invisible. And the most disturbing thing, maybe she wasn't being watched. Maybe she was being prepared. With each new day, the signs grew bolder. A window that opened by itself, always at the same time. A mirror that fogged up with words written in the mist, as if someone was trying to communicate something through time itself. One morning, Anna saw something in the mirror that froze her body inside, the silhouette of someone behind her. But when he turned around, there was no one there. The silence was total, but filled with a sound that could not be heard. It could only be felt. An emotional frequency, a vibration in the air. She was no longer alone, and somehow it was becoming clearer and clearer. But the turning point came when she returned to where she grew up. Her grandmother's old house, now uninhabited, carried a smell of old wood and buried memories. There, in the attic, he found a box with items that had been stored for decades. Inside, among old diaries, dusty ribbons and portraits of past generations, was a silver medallion with an inscription that appeared to be in Latin: "Protect the truth." Protect the truth. It was at that moment that something inside her clicked. The fear didn't go away, but it lost control, because now there was a direction, a code to be deciphered, a message that had crossed generations to reach her. The truth wasn't just in what the eyes could see. It was in the subtext of the past, in the gaps in memory, in the silences of the family, in the looks that hid more than they revealed. And the more Anna allowed herself to feel, the more she understood. The journey that she thought was just hers was a piece within something much bigger. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because what started as a dream has now turned into a series of events that can no longer be ignored. The veil that separates the visible world from what lies behind reality is tearing, and Anna is about to discover that there is much more at stake than she ever imagined. Comment below. I'm on this journey too. If all this touched something inside you, that medallion with the inscription "Protect the Truth," it wouldn't leave Anna's head. It was like a key, not only because of its symbolism, but because of what it seemed to unlock inside her. A desire that grew with each passing second, not only to understand what was happening, but to discover what had been hidden for so many years, buried under layers of silence, fear, and convenience. Anna knew that she could no longer go on with her life as if nothing had changed. Those signs, that dream, her mother's letter kept in a forgotten envelope, everything pointed to a common center, and she needed to face it. The following weekend, he went to the house where his mother now lived with his grandmother. The house had that old smell of childhood and dense memories. Sitting at the kitchen table, with the kettle whistling in the background, Anna finally broke the silence. He placed the medallion on the towel and said, "Tell me what you never wanted to tell. I already know there's something more to this story." Grandma's eyes widened, as if she had been pulled back to a time she would rather forget. The mother took a deep breath, crossed her arms, and stared at her daughter for a few seconds before getting up to close the kitchen door. It was as if, by doing so, he was also closing a barrier between the present and the secrets of the past. A silent pact between generations was about to be broken. The conversation began timidly, hesitantly, but little by little the words began to emerge, heavy, broken, as if they carried more than just memories. Anna's mother told her that many years ago her brother, Anna's uncle, had been involved in something unusual. He was young, full of ideals, but also very sensitive to things that others preferred to ignore. He had always had strange dreams, visions, a kind of connection with what no one else could see. The family thought it was just an overactive imagination, but that changed the day he saved a child. A girl who, for some reason, was exactly where she shouldn't have been, about to fall off a cliff during a school trip. The uncle acted as if he knew what was going to happen. He ran before anyone noticed, shouted the girl's name, even though he didn't know her, and managed to pull her out seconds before the worst happened. He was considered a hero, of course, but after that something changed in him. He started having anxiety attacks, deep nightmares, and a constant feeling that he was being followed. But he never said by whom. Instead, he would lock himself in his room for hours, writing in notebooks that would later disappear without a trace, until the day he disappeared. His body was found 3 days later in a nearby forest, with no signs of violence, but with one detail that never left his grandmother's mind. He was holding something in his hand, a piece of cloth with the same symbol that was now on Anna's medallion. It was there that the grandmother finally spoke. His voice was firm but full of pain. She said that the symbol had ancient origins, much older than anyone there could imagine, and that for generations the family had been marked by strange episodes which no one could explain logically. Cousins who saw shadows since they were little, uncles who talked in their sleep as if they were other people, premonitory dreams that came true. Silence was the only way they found to survive without going crazy. But now, with Anna, everything seemed to have returned, only more intense, more direct, as if that cycle, previously dormant, had been fully activated. Anna listened to everything carefully. Every detail seemed to fit into something she already felt but couldn't name. It wasn't just about the uncle, it was about a repeating pattern, a line of events connected by an invisible thread that cut across generations. And no matter how much they tried to avoid it, the truth was coming back, with force. She then asked what her uncle had hidden before he died. The mother and grandmother exchanged glances. It was a secret neither of them wanted to relive, but Anna insisted, and that's when they revealed something that seemed to come out of a book, but was too real to be made up. Days before he died, the uncle had left a note with the grandmother. It said, "If it happens to me, look for the name. He knows the way, but don't tell anyone yet. They can't know that you know." There was no further information. That was it. And a name. A name that Grandma had never had the courage to look up. Until now, Anna insisted on knowing what it was. The grandmother, after a long pause, replied, "Ezekiel." A common name, perhaps, but with a strange weight in the mouth of whoever pronounced it. And that's when Anna began to understand that this search for answers would not be simple. It wasn't a straight line. It was a journey full of branches where each step would take her deeper into a complex web woven by invisible hands. The full impact of it all hadn't yet sunk in, but she could already feel the pieces moving. In the following days, Anna began to investigate on her own. He searched old records, scoured city archives, searched for references to the name Ezekiel, in documents, news reports, anything that might give him a clue. And that's when the first coincidences appeared, or rather disguised revelations. A man by that name had lived in the city decades ago, a mystic, as they said at the time. Someone who had the gift of seeing beyond. He disappeared mysteriously. But there were people who said he didn't disappear. He was just called back. The phrase appeared in an old newspaper, in an interview lost in time, and it affected Anna in a way she couldn't explain. He began to realize that there are behind-the-scenes aspects of reality that are not easily revealed. Things that are only revealed to those who are willing to see. The world is not just what the eyes capture. It holds codes, symbols, layers, and some people are chosen, not because they are special, but because they can bear the weight of carrying these hidden truths. Anna was among those people, and more she felt that what awaited her ahead was not just the truth about her uncle, but about herself. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because this name, Ezekiel, carries a much greater meaning than it seems at first glance. It's not just a clue, it's a portal, and when Anna discovers what's really behind this name, nothing will ever be the same again. Comment below, this makes sense to me, if you also feel like there's something beyond the surface, waiting to be discovered. With each new discovery, Anna felt she was being led, not just by curiosity, but by something more subtle, almost as if invisible forces were opening doors at just the right time. The name Ezekiel, for example, began to appear in unexpected ways. In old books in the city library, in forgotten notes in the back of a grandmother's drawer, and even on an old cassette tape with a voice recording that mentioned the reading of the guardian spirit. It was as if everything was interconnected, as if there was a hidden truth waiting to be revealed, but only to those who were truly ready to see it. If you feel that you are also on this wavelength, perhaps it makes sense to take a look at the material I left below, reading from your birth angel. It is practical, direct content made especially for those who want to connect with personalized guidance from the angelic kingdom, something that can greatly help navigate phases of profound transformation, like the one Anna is experiencing now in the story. This material is complementary to what we talked about here, and can save you a lot of time in practice, especially if you feel that certain answers are already within you. They just need to be awakened. It's here in the description, but I might take it down in the next few days, so if it's useful to you, take advantage of it while it's still available. Now back to the story. Anna still has no idea what she will find when she finally, with each new thread pulled, Anna got closer to a tangle that no one in the family seemed to want to unravel completely. The answers came with long pauses, averted glances and silences that said more than any sentence. Her uncle's name, once almost a distant shadow in the past, now carried a weight that Anna never imagined. It was as if suddenly, this man she had only known through photos and scattered stories was trying to come back to settle scores that should never have been left open. The grandmother, realizing that she could no longer contain what had been hidden for so many years, opened the drawer that she always kept locked. Inside, besides old letters and objects that seemed to have been forgotten by time, there was an envelope with Anna's name handwritten on it. The paper was yellowed, but the contents pulsed as if it had been written that very morning. Inside it, a letter from her uncle himself, or rather from someone who until that moment Anna believed to be just her uncle. The carefully written words revealed something that made the ground disappear beneath his feet. The letter began by saying, "Issa, if you ever find this, it's because the time has come for you to know who I really was." And he continued with a confession that shattered everything Anna thought she knew about her origins. That man, who everyone always treated as his mother's brother, was actually his biological father. The impact of this revelation was so profound that Anna had to leave the house to breathe. She walked aimlessly through silent streets, trying to reorganize the fragments of her own identity. The truth hidden behind her mother's and grandmother's silences now made sense, and little by little, she began to remember situations that had previously seemed disconnected. Gestures too affectionate for an uncle, the way he looked at her in the few photos that existed, her mother's nervousness whenever his name came up in a conversation. But there was more. The letter revealed that he had donated a kidney to save Anna's life when she was still a child, at a time when everyone said the donor was anonymous. The surgery had been complex and risky. He insisted on keeping it a secret. He said the most important thing was to see her live, grow, have a chance. But he also said, sadly, that fear of judgment and family scandal had kept the truth buried. There was shame. There was guilt. And there was love, a love that no one had the courage to explain. The mother, after much resistance, confirmed everything. The uncle, the father, the donor, they were all the same person, a man who loved in silence and who chose to protect his daughter, even if it cost him his presence, his truth, his own image. Anna then understood the request for forgiveness that came in the dream. It wasn't about the past she knew. It was about the story that was denied to him, about the space he could never occupy in her life, about the words that were trapped between her mouth and her heart. The strangest thing of all was how, even without consciously knowing it, Anna had always felt an inexplicable connection with him. Since she was little, she said she dreamed of a man with kind eyes who smiled as he watched her from afar. Sometimes he talked, sometimes he just followed her. And now she realized that perhaps that figure had always been there, not in flesh and blood, but as a presence that subtly tried to protect her, as if something inside her knew all along. These revelations not only explained the recent manifestations, falling objects, whispering voices in the distance, feelings of being guided, but also marked a much deeper internal transformation. It was as if a new piece had been placed in the puzzle of Anna's life, and she was now able to look at herself with different eyes, with a different mindset. It wasn't just about knowing where she came from, but about understanding the reason for certain feelings, certain intuitions, certain emptinesses that she had never been able to name until then. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because when a truth like this comes to light, it brings with it a series of secondary revelations, emotional side effects, decisions that will never be made the same way again, and a sense of purpose that changes everything around it. Anna's journey is still ongoing, and the curious thing is that the closer she gets to what seemed hidden, the more the world around her begins to respond in ways that defy any common logic. Comment here. That makes sense to me, if any part of this story touched something inside you. From the moment all those truths began to emerge, something inside Anna changed profoundly. It wasn't just the discovery of a family secret. It was as if a new lens had been placed before her eyes. Everything began to have a different meaning. Old memories gained new layers, and what once seemed like mere coincidence now sounded like clear signs of a connection that had always existed. It was just hidden behind the scenes of a story full of fear, silence, and misunderstood protection. Anna returned to that letter several times. He reread each word as if trying to hear the voice of someone who had passed away. But there was a part of the message that was not written, and that even so screamed inside her, the certainty that he never stopped being close by. The dream about asking for forgiveness, the episodes of intense intuition, that feeling of being guided by something invisible. It all started to make sense. Little by little, Anna began to understand that the angel that had been appearing in her visions and premonitions was him, your uncle, your father. Not as a metaphor or an emotional reverie, but as a real, constant, loving presence, a spirit that refused to sever its connection with her even after death. It could not rest while the truth remained buried, and while she went through life without knowing who she really was. The connection between them was more than biological. It was spiritual. It was energetic. And each new mysterious event she experienced seemed to have been carefully prepared so that this discovery would emerge at just the right time. Anna began to have clearer, more vivid dreams. Dreams in which he no longer asked for forgiveness. He just smiled, calm, as if he could finally look his own daughter in the eyes without having to hide anything. In one of these dreams, she was sitting on the bank of a river. He approached silently and sat next to her. There were no words, but a peace so deep that Anna woke up crying, not from pain but from relief, from liberation. Because, in that moment she understood, he had found a way to continue protecting her, even from the other side. This understanding did not come as a shock, but as a truth that reveals itself little by little until there is no longer any way to deny it. It was as if something inside her had always known. Since she was a child, she said she felt an invisible force protecting her in difficult times, like when she got lost on a field trip when she was 5 and was found exactly where no one had looked, like when he escaped a car accident because, on impulse, he decided to change his route that day, like when I woke up in the middle of the night with a phrase in my head, and the next day it made perfect sense when faced with a problem that arose. These are the details that, in isolation, seem like random episodes, but together they form a powerful spiritual mosaic. Anna was not just the daughter of a man who was afraid to admit the truth. She was the daughter of someone who chose to love her beyond the limitations of her body, beyond social conventions, beyond death. This revelation brought a new understanding about her very existence, something deeper than any rational explanation, because there are bonds that neither time nor shame nor silence can destroy. And this awareness opened doors that Anna didn't even know were closed. She began to realize that many of her decisions, until then made on impulse or intuition, had a more subtle logic behind them, a guided logic. She now understood that her journey was never alone, that there was something or someone whispering wisdom in her ears, even when everything around her seemed to be falling apart. This wasn't just imagination, it was spiritual guidance. It was care. Over time, Anna also began to realize that this presence was not limited to moments of danger or sadness. He was there when she had doubts, when she needed to make difficult decisions, when she felt lost, like that time when he was about to accept a job that had nothing to do with his purpose. And on the eve of signing the contract, he dreamed of the same river from the letter. He woke up with such a strong feeling of don't go there that he quit his job. Months later, the company went bankrupt, and employees went months without receiving pay. It is revelations like these that shape a new mindset. Anna began to trust her sensitivity, her feelings, her inner voice more. She understood that spirituality is not something that is experienced only within rituals or religious beliefs. It is something that pulses within the human experience itself, when we are willing to listen to what is beyond the obvious. The impact of this was so great that she began to write down everything, dreams, signs, synchronicities. It was like putting together a diary of the soul, where each entry was another step on the climb to self-knowledge. The transformation did not come from the outside in. It came from the rediscovery of a hidden truth that could only emerge when Anna was ready. And she realized that the forgiveness he had been seeking so much was, in fact, already present, because the pain of not knowing was replaced by the gratitude of having discovered, by the peace of understanding that, even without having been present as a father in life, he was the most present father he could have been, in the way he could, in the way that time and destiny allowed. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because this spiritual connection between Hannah and her father does not end with the revelation. In fact, this is where the story takes an even more surprising turn, where the visible and the invisible meet in a way that few people dare to believe, but which forever transforms those who have the courage to see. Write in the comments, I'm on this journey too, if this story sparked something inside you. Days after that profound revelation, Anna's life seemed to have entered a new frequency, a kind of different vibration that affected everything around her, but in a way that was still difficult to fully understand. She felt that connection, that presence that was previously just an almost imperceptible whisper, was now clear, like a light that invades the darkness and reveals previously hidden paths. The internal transformation did not go unnoticed, and with it came a renewed mindset, a closer look at the little things, at the details that once seemed random and now had an almost sacred meaning. But like every journey of self-discovery and growth, life also brought its unexpected challenges. It was a normal afternoon, like so many others, when Anna decided to go out to take care of some pending matters. The sun was already beginning to set, casting a golden hue over the busy city streets. She was alone in the car, her mind divided between recent revelations and her daily routine. The feeling that something bigger was following her every step was strong, but at the same time a little confusing. After all, how could she continue to believe in all that when the outside world seemed so indifferent to these internal transformations? Suddenly, something happened. A moment of distraction, a sudden movement from another vehicle, and Anna's car was thrown off the road, rolling over several times. The impact was brutal. The world seemed to spin, a whirlwind of sounds, lights, pain, and silence interspersed. But when it all finally stopped, Anna was there unharmed. Not a scratch, not a cut, nothing that would justify the severity of the accident. She was alive, intact, almost as if she had been protected by an invisible force, a presence that refused to let her go. The witnesses who arrived soon after were shocked. She shouldn't have gotten out alive, some said, still stunned. Others mentioned that they had seen a strange light, a shadow that seemed to envelop the car at the moment of the accident. For them, it was inexplicable, a true miracle. For Anna, however, everything made sense. In the silence of her heart, she felt that connection again, that familiar warmth. The angel who had been with her for so long, her uncle, was there, not in physical form, but present as a silent guardian, a force that crossed the veil between worlds to protect her daughter. This experience not only confirmed everything Anne had already discovered, but also brought a new dimension to her journey. It was as if she was living behind the scenes of a hidden truth, a parallel reality, where the ordinary rules of life and death did not apply in the same way. Every decision, every moment, every personal transformation was observed by that invisible gaze, which watched over her with a dedication that transcended time and space. That night, as she processed everything that had happened, Anna understood that this spiritual connection was no coincidence. It was an invitation for her to open her heart and mind even more, to dare to explore in depth this force that pulsed within her. This realization changed everything. Fear, doubt, insecurity began to give way to a certainty that came from the deepest part of her soul. It was a certainty that told her that no matter how challenging the journey was, she would never be alone. Furthermore, this experience led to an important reflection on the decisions we make in our daily lives. How many times do we go through situations of risk or choice without even realizing the invisible influence that is acting behind the scenes? How many hidden truths remain hidden within us or our family members, waiting for the right moment to emerge and transform our perspective? Anna began to understand that life is a complex fabric, made of visible and invisible threads, where each knot represents a choice, a transformation, an opportunity to grow. This journey also changed the way she viewed her own spirituality. It stopped being something distant and abstract and became a concrete, practical experience that directly impacted her reality. The connection with her angel uncle was living proof that there is something greater guiding our decisions, influencing our mindset and opening doors to the unexpected. It was a powerful reminder that, even in the most adverse situations, there is a purpose, a force that works for our greater good. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because understanding this connection between the spiritual world and our earthly journey is fundamental to understanding how true revelations and transformations happen. Life is not just what we see on the surface, and it is precisely in the encounter between the visible and the invisible that lies the hidden truth that can change everything. When we recognize this, we begin to make decisions that are more aligned with our essence. We open space for new perspectives, and we expand our impact on our own destiny. Understanding these spiritual backgrounds also helps us to better deal with life's uncertainties. We know that not everything is under our control, but that behind everything there is a network of protection, care, and constant learning. This perception strengthens our mind, prepares us for challenges, and invites us to embrace the journey with more courage and serenity. After all, the real impact of our choices is far beyond what we imagine, and recognizing this is a revelation that can transform the way we live. And in this transformation, there is an invitation for each of us to awaken to these invisible connections. to these forces that often operate in silence, but which have the power to shape our path. Anna's journey is a mirror of this truth, that behind the most difficult events there is a purpose, a light that never goes out and that continues to guide, even when everything seems lost. Write in the comments, "This makes sense to me," if you have ever felt something similar. That invisible presence that acts in the decisive moments of your life. How many angels have crossed your path without you even noticing? It may seem like a simple question, but it carries a depth that we often ignore in the rush of everyday life. It is easy to go through life without noticing the subtleties, signs and presences that, although invisible to the eye, shape our destiny, influence our decisions, and transform our mentality. Anna, for example, only understood the true nature of that presence when life confronted her with the unexpected, the accident, the almost miraculous protection, the unmistakable feeling of a love that transcends matter. This leads us to think, how many times do we close our eyes to these revelations? How many hidden truths do we let go unnoticed because we are stuck in routine, skepticism, or simply lack of attention? What if that strange dream you had last night, the one that seemed to make no sense, wasn't just a figment of your imagination? What if it was a sign, a message that tries to break the veil between the conscious and the unconscious, between the physical and the spiritual? We often underestimate dreams, disbelieve in coincidences, and dismiss moments of deep intuition as mere illusions. But it is precisely these experiences that connect us with a greater dimension, where time and space dissolve, where the journey we take takes on a broader meaning. Anna experienced this firsthand. She realized that the little things, a dream, a feeling, an invisible presence, were connected to a network of protection and care that went far beyond what her eyes could see. This reflection leads us to a truth that many forget, but which is fundamental to understanding the complexity of existence. Angels do not always have wings. They do not always appear as supernatural figures enveloped in light. Sometimes they are ordinary people, members of our family, friends, those who walked alongside us and even after they have passed away, continue with us in an invisible but real way. In Anna's case, the angel was her uncle, that relative who, in life, may have kept secrets, but who in the spiritual plane assumed an even greater role, that of a silent guardian, a behind-the-scenes figure in her transformation. This changes the way we view spirituality and the impact it has on our daily decisions. It is common to think of spiritual protection as something distant or abstract, but the truth is that it is intrinsically linked to our emotions, our choices, and the way we face life's journey. The connection with that angel uncle made Anna realize that even in adversity, there is a force that operates behind the scenes, an intelligence that guides and supports, that manifests itself through small revelations that together form a mosaic of care and hope. This is the hidden truth that few have the courage to see, but which, when understood, can radically transform our mindset and the way we face our challenges. Furthermore, this reflection brings a powerful invitation for us to look within and around us with more attention and sensitivity. How many people in our lives are actually angels in disguise? How many moments that we consider random are actually turning points in our history? Anna discovered that this connection was not only a comfort for the pain, but a source of strength and transformation. She shows us that true changes happen when we accept that there is a dimension beyond what our eyes can capture, a dimension where emotions, intuitions, and decisions intertwine to create a lasting impact on our existence. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject because spirituality, when understood as this invisible network that connects lives, opens doors to revelations that change the way we deal with the past, the present, and the future. It is in this intertwining that we find the real power of transformation, one that does not depend only on what we do externally, but on the internal change that alters our perception and prepares us for what is to come. It is there that emotional authority manifests itself, not as something imposed, but as a certainty that arises from profound experience, from experience that touches the soul. This awareness changes the way we approach difficult decisions, the doubts that haunt us, and the uncertainties that are part of the human journey. We know that even when everything seems chaotic, there is an invisible thread of care and purpose that keeps us connected to something greater. This mindset strengthens not only our spirit, but also our ability to act with clarity and serenity, knowing that we are not alone and that every step is being watched by those who love us beyond the physical world. By realizing this, we begin to understand that true spirituality is not just a belief, but a concrete experience that directly impacts our way of living, deciding and evolving. And this experience can arise in the most unexpected moments, in a dream, in a sign, in an angel disguised as a family member, or even in an accident where life proves stronger than death. Write down, "I'm on this journey too," if you've ever felt this silent presence, this force that acts behind the scenes in your life. If you have ever had a dream like this, one of those that seems more real than life itself, where there is a clear presence, a silent request for forgiveness, a gesture that touches the depths of the soul, know that this should not be ignored. These experiences have a much greater impact than we imagine. They are like an encrypted message from life, an invitation to a true transformation, a call to look within with more courage, to make decisions that go beyond the obvious, and to recognize that often what we consider coincidence is, in fact, a hidden truth operating behind the scenes of our destiny. It is fascinating to think that all this happens while we live our routine, immersed in a mentality that prioritizes the immediate and the tangible, forgetting that there is a dimension that goes beyond time and space, where human and spiritual connections intertwine and create a lasting impact. Anna's journey is not just an isolated account of a miraculous accident and an encounter with the inexplicable, is a clear example of how spirituality can manifest itself in the most challenging moments, revealing a deep meaning to our experiences, even when they seem chaotic or meaningless. This phenomenon, this connection between the visible and the invisible, forces us to rethink our way of acting and perceiving the world. When we open ourselves to these signs, we change our mindset. We enter a process of transformation that affects not only our way of seeing life, but also our decisions and attitudes. And it is at this point that the hidden truth reveals itself. We are not alone, even when we feel lost or without direction. There is always an invisible thread that connects us to something greater, to a network of love, protection, and learning that operates silently, but with a force that can be felt clearly when we allow ourselves to feel it. Anna, upon realizing this, understood that her accident was not a coincidence, but a milestone in her history, a turning point that invited her to look at her life from a new perspective. This realization changed his mindset, his way of dealing with fear, doubt, and uncertainty. He began to value the details, the small and subtle signs, to pay attention to the sensations that he previously dismissed. It was as if his journey gained a new meaning, a new dimension, where the spiritual and the material met to show that life is a mosaic of experiences that shape us, that challenge us, and that, in the end, lead us to a profound and necessary transformation. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because understanding this dynamic between dreams, signs, and the invisible presence that guides our lives is essential to expanding consciousness and strengthening the spirit. This is where spirituality ceases to be something distant and abstract and becomes a concrete force, capable of directly influencing the impact we have on the world and the legacy we build. Anna's journey is an invitation for each of us to recognize these moments of revelation and use them to reprogram our minds, our energy, and our actions, making room for transformation to truly happen and not just on the surface. This change, in perspective, is not simple, because it requires us to break with limiting beliefs, face old fears, and give up our comfort zone. But it is precisely in this process that we discover the power of conscious decisions, the value behind the scenes of our existence, and the importance of connecting with what is beyond the immediate, the visible and the tangible. This is the essence of true change, which does not happen by chance, but as a result of a deep alignment between our mind, our heart, and the forces that govern the universe. If you have ever felt something similar, a dream that stirred your soul, a presence that made the impossible seem possible, a sign that you could not ignore. Know that this is a call to awaken a new mindset, to reevaluate your journey and understand that every detail has a purpose, an impact greater than you imagine. This is the beauty and complexity of life, full of mysteries, revelations, and opportunities to grow and transform. Comment below. This makes sense to me if you have already noticed these signs and want to continue deepening this connection with the invisible that guides our lives. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate your company in this very special conversation. It's precisely for those who seek this type of reflection, this true connection with what touches deep down, that I want to invite you to continue here. If the content made sense to you, if it brought some light or concern that is worth exploring, feel free to leave a sentence in the comments that shows that I'm with you until the end. I like to know who is really on the journey with me, absorbing every detail and sharing this very genuine exchange. And if this conversation touched you in any way, a like is already a beautiful way to acknowledge all of this. Because what we build here goes far beyond numbers. It is a bridge that we create together between ideas, experiences, and paths that intertwine. It is this connection that keeps everything alive, that makes the message reach you with the strength it deserves. Oh, and there's a video here that complements this subject in a way you might not expect. Click there and stay with me there, because there's much more for us to discover and understand about this journey we're on. See you soon.